back, everybody, to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. We are talking about resumes. And joining me is my colleague, Jen Simons, who's a former admissions officer at Tufts, Northeastern, Connecticut College, and Barnard, and a former school counselor. And I think that's particularly relevant to our conversation today, the fact that she's worked at all of these different colleges, because we're going to talk about a hot button item, and that is the resume. Hi, Jen.
Hi, it's so good to see you, Beth.
You too. So Jen, I want you to share, when we decided to do this segment, the primary goal was a PSA from you. So I want the PSA, and then we'll talk a little bit more in depth about why, and maybe offer a slight counterpoint.
Okay, that sounds good. What you didn't mention when you listed my previous accomplishments was my current most important accomplishment, which is that I produce this podcast. And
True.
I'm only telling that because I very rarely put myself on the schedule, but I decided to put myself on the schedule proactively because we get lots and lots of questions. And after, should I submit my SAT or ACT, the second most popular question is, should I submit a resume in addition to my, extracurricular list on the application? So I wanted to do, as you said, a public service announcement on behalf of the admissions officers out there, which is to say, no, you do not need, in my opinion and their opinion, to submit anything more than is required in the Common App activities list.
Right.
Admissions officers have a short amount of time to read your application. They want to focus on what's necessary, and 10 extracurricular activities is more than enough to give even the most involved students an opportunity to let their light shine. I will call attention to the fact that MIT only allows 4 activities.
Yes.
And if those kids are getting into one of the nation's most selective universities, and we all know that they're high achievers, then I think that 10 is enough for every student.
Right. And I am 100% in agreement with you. We would like to note, right? So we'd like to give the colleges what they ask for. If a school, obviously, if a school asks for a resume, then by God, give them a resume. However, if they give you the opportunity to submit a resume, what I would caution, and I'm guessing you would second, is that giving you the opportunity does not mean they're asking you for it. What happens in a lot of admissions offices, from my experience, is students want to give you so much. They just want to share everything. And sometimes you just kind of throw your hands up and say, okay, fine. You want to send us a resume? Here is an opportunity. You can send us a resume. Doesn't mean they really want it. Doesn't mean they need it. Just means that they are kind of waving the white flag because so many students are asking for that opportunity. I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. And I thought about this a long time because I have a very different opinion about things that are, quote, optional. When they put optional in
Yes.
Parentheses, this is an opportunity. This is not an optional. And I guarantee it's because mothers, excuse me, I'm obviously a mother, or not obviously, but I'm a mother. So I feel like I could criticize my brethren and say that it was a mother calling up and saying, my daughter doesn't have enough room on the application to list all of the fabulous things that she's done, and mother after mother like got this changed. So I want moms to redirect their energies to other things, but now
That's
colleges that's too, I know, but I know it's a stereotype, but anyway, so I think that I 100% agree with you. This is not an optional thing. We're giving you the opportunity. If you don't complete this opportunity, if you don't fulfill this, then it doesn't reflect negatively in any way.
Right. And I will say, we actually used to sometimes have a problem with students not completing the activities section of the application. Now, this is going back now. You could put one activity in, or you could say, no, I don't have any activities to report. That would then show as blank and then submit a resume because you like the resume format. I mean, I can't tell you I don't even know what other words I could use to say other than absolutely do not ever do this. Did you ever see that? I saw it a
Oh,
few times.
Beth, my three least favorite words are please see attached.
Yeah,
I
no,
if we're asking for it, if a college is asking for it, we are asking for it for a reason. We know you sent something, but we want you to fill this out. So
right.
100% agree.
Yes. And, we've said this many, many times on this podcast, in presentations. I've certainly said it in one-on-one conversations with students and parents. In this process, as difficult as it is to believe, less is actually more. I had 15 minutes with every file at Penn. That is a luxurious amount of time to read compared to how much time many schools allow for people to read files. I mean, I think you were saying, there are places where you have 5 minutes. I'm not even sure the 15 minutes is valid anymore because the numbers have skyrocketed so much, and the numbers of people who work in the admissions offices have not skyrocketed, which means they have less time to review every file, right? So make it easy, make it quick.
Absolutely.
Fair?
It's that, oh, 100%. It's that book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo, where she tells you to only include things that spark joy, and
Yes.
that when you have too much stuff, it detracts from the important things that you absolutely want them to see. And so, yes, you want to direct their eye to, you want to be able to pare down, to edit, not just dump everything, because they're not going to have the time to do the editing for you. You
Right.
want to do it for them.
In fact, if it's too much stuff, what they will often do is just move on to the next thing. And that is 100% not what you want to have happen. Okay, I think we've established pretty clearly here that this resume, not a good idea. However, there might be a few instances where something like this might not be a bad idea. But let's talk for a second about this whole concept of calling it a resume, because you were saying a resume is a great thing to have when you are getting ready to graduate from college and you're looking to get a job, right?
Or
And
even
then,
when you're in college, I remember when I was hiring people in the admissions office, we would look to see who had work experience. Like, so I do think you need a resume, not for
right,
this purpose, but
right, exactly. For this purpose, I don't think the resume format that you're going to use when you're looking for a job has any place in this. The skies open, the clouds parted, and the sun came out when I was reading a file at Penn, and the student had submitted something extra, and it was in the same format that we asked for their activities in. And it only listed a few additional things that they hadn't been able to fit on the application, which meant it was easy for me to read it because it was a format I was very familiar with. It provided all of the information that I needed about each of these activities, because that's what we asked about all the other activities. And it wasn't repeating anything that I'd already seen on the application. So what are your thoughts on that type of an addition to the application?
I think until you've sat from December to March reading file after file after file, you don't appreciate what your eyes
Yes,
experience and what your brain, like, exactly what you said. You want everything to be in the same format because you don't want to have to put in any additional work to sort of get the information you need. And if somebody gives me like a chronological resume that is and of course a resume, you said this, it's going to be a different format
right,
because you're not going to give an employer your Common App extracurricular list. So just
right.
any sort of resume is going to be different. If you can replicate the format of the Common App, perfect. That's fine. You can add what you want. But I think that you just want your eyes to be able to immediately assess what they need to. And the easiest way to do that is to keep the order that was kept before. Now, even for a real resume, where it's going to be in a different format, one of the things we see a lot, because we certainly edit a lot of these, is multiple like 4-page resumes for high school
Yes.
students, and that is banana pants. Like I've looked at resumes for CEOs that are 2 pages. Like it doesn't need to be that long. Again, I think even for that purpose, you just want to be able to scan.
Right, exactly. It really shouldn't be any more than 1 page additional. I mean, in a perfect world, if you need to add a couple of additional activities that are really important, or you really want to expand slightly on a couple of activities because the word count is so limited for a reason, but maybe you really do need, and sometimes there are occasions where it really is helpful, and you haven't written about that activity, right, in an essay or something like that. The place for this is additional information, which is limited to 650 words, but still, it's there for this purpose rather than submitting an entirely new document. If it's in the additional information, then it's right there when your AO is reading the file versus having to download or scan a whole other thing that, just isn't part of the application in the format that you're asking it for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to think if there are any other tips or hints we can offer about resumes. There's a couple of things that I hate to see. I prefer to call it an activities grid. Please, for the love of God, don't tell me what classes you took and what grade you got in them. I mean, that's a huge one for me. I don't know about for you.
Oh, I can top that. That's a huge one for me. But my least favorite is when they have like a sort of statement of purpose, or honey, your purpose is to get into college and get a job. And you don't need. I don't mind in a personal resume that's being used for job search purposes to have some of the highlights, like if you're fluent in another language, if there's something you've done over 5,000 puzzles or something like that, that's going to be a conversation starter in an interview in a job format, but that's not the application. You have the rest of the application to start that conversation. It's going to be a one-sided conversation because the admissions officer is not going to be able to respond. But
right, exactly. It's you shouldn't, whatever this is, if you're providing additional information, it should not be repeating what is already on the application. That's the cardinal rule. If I've read it once, I definitely don't want to read it again. And so stick to, if it's truly important to add, make sure that it is adding and not repeating, right? I think that's a big thing. All right, we had a little bit of a technical challenge and we lost Jen for the end, but I could tell you that she agreed with me on the making sure it's adding and not repeating. I do want to thank Jen and all of my guests for being here today. Next week, Ian is hosting, and we're all about underclassmen next week. So what you can be doing now from both an admissions and a financial perspective, or a college finance perspective, that is. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to yours. And if you would, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. The more of those that we get, the easier it is for people to find this podcast and listen to us as well. If you have questions, you can always send them to us on Facebook, on Instagram. You could send them to our email, gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com. We do monthly listener question segments, so send those in and we'll answer them on air. We'll try to answer them on air. If you're interested in learning if we've covered a topic of interest, we blog about every podcast. So go to our blog and search there, blog.getintocollege.com. And don't forget, we're here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific.